In our last episode, which now officially was last year, we talked about the psychology of quitting. There were a couple of things that I said in what was the last episode of 2023 that I feel we can add on to. And this episode is going to do that. But before I do, just in case you might have missed that episode or some things need to be emphasized, let me remind you what was on that episode. In that episode, we talked about what makes the difference between people who are willing to quit and those who quit the wrong things. One of the statements that I mentioned to you was the fact that there's quitting because you're not willing to put in the work, right? And then there's quitting because no matter how much work you put in, there will never be results that you can appreciate. Let me put it this way. Sometimes we can put so much effort in something that is not working because we don't want to let go, because letting go means we failed. But then there's times when you know that if I keep doing this, I'm losing energy, I'm losing time, and I'm losing cost opportunity. So it's better for me to walk away. And so those were some of the things that we explored as we talked about the psychology of quitting. There's quitting because you think you are not worth it. And then there's quitting because it is not worth it for you. So you got to evaluate the relationship between you and your work, you and the thing you're trying to accomplish, you and the goal that is in front of you. You have to ask yourself, am I worth that goal? And most times you are. But the real question is the goal, is the thing you're trying to achieve, the thing you're trying to build, the thing that you're putting energy and resources to, is it worth your time? And it is important to evaluate that carefully, prayerfully, and with the right guidance and with the right counsel. And then we talked about the 4 types of quitters, because all of us are different. While we all consider the idea of quitting at one time or another, the type of quitter that you are will influence the things that you quit. For example, you have the pathetic quitter. This is the person that's not willing to put in the effort. They don't try. They're always starting something new because they just haven't given the thing they're doing enough time. The pathetic quitter is always blaming other people. The pathetic quitter finds other quitters and associates with them. So pathetic quitting is about not being willing to do the work, not getting help, and not prayerfully considering your options. Then we talked about the people quitter. This is the person that never gives people a second chance. This is the person that expects more from others than they do themselves. They put so much pressure for other people to show up for them, but they're never willing to show up for others. We see this in the work environment, where bosses and managers and leaders never give their people the right environment, the right resources, the right assistance to produce the results they expect. And so they constantly berating them. Whenever things are good, they take the glory to themselves. When things are bad, they pass it on to their subordinates. And so these are people quitters. We see it in relationships. We see it even in church, in spiritual environments where people never give each other second chances. We see it in families, where parents will pick between their children, where siblings will pick between each other, and they'll pick between parents. So people quitters are the people that never give other people a chance. On the other side, people quitters are people that quit on themselves. They never allow themselves the opportunity to fail, to try again, to fall and to get up. They give up on themselves as much as they give up on others. Then you got the positive type of quitting, which is, I call it the pivotal quitter. This is the person that understands that the way I'm doing this now, the way I'm doing my job, the course that I'm studying, the place I live in, it's not conducive for the growth I'm looking for. So I need to pivot in another direction. I need to change what I'm doing, whether it's the business you're running, the path you've chosen at university, the relationship goals. Pivoting is important. And so when you do pivotal quitting, it's not giving up on yourself or on someone else. It's simply saying, this is not working. Let me try it in a different way so I can get the results that I'm looking for. And then finally, we talked about the progressive quitter. Or I think about somebody who's trying to give up smoking. or drinking. There are people who have the courage to go cold turkey, just immediately stop and give it up. Whereas there are some people who need to reduce from 2 packs a day to 1 pack to 3 cigarettes to 1 cigarette a day to 1 cigarette a month and then totally give up. Progressive quitting is about letting go of a thing without disrupting yourself and running the risk of going back again. Or progressive quitting is letting go slowly of a thing that's not working for you, of a path that is dangerous for you, and you just reduce your exposure and your focus until you're totally out of it. Whatever that means for you, you have to decide. Have I been quitting the wrong way? Have I been a pathetic quitter? Have I been quitting people? Or are you a master of understanding that quitting is good sometimes, that sometimes you got to pivot and sometimes you have to progress, whatever that may mean for you. So that was what we discussed in our previous episode. And so thinking about that, somebody asked me, so what are the things, Sam, that I'm supposed to quit? What are the things that I should let go of? So here's my dilemma while going through this episode of the podcast that I want you to understand, that I want to tell you what you should quit, but I'm going to do it generally and not specifically. Confused? Good. You'll understand in a moment. I cannot come into your life and tell you, you need to quit this, you need to quit that, you need to quit that. If I know you personally, I could do that. But because I'm speaking to somebody whose life is probably unknown to me, and yet at the same time, there are experiences that we share in common. There are things that we can quit that can help us. And then there are things that we can start that can help us. And so I'm going to give you a group of words in this episode to help you realize that in 2024, these are the things I need to quit. These are the things I need to hold on to. All right, let's get started. You need to quit comparing and start connecting. You need to stop comparing and start connecting. See, there's a difference between comparing yourself to others or comparing others to something else. And there's a difference with connecting at the same time. When you compare yourself to somebody else, you're either saying, I'm better than them. I'm ahead of them. I could do a better job than them. That might be true, but entertaining the idea can actually hurt you. And I'm going to tell you how that is possible. Or you can look at other people and think they are better than me. You know how you put people on a pedestal? You elevate their experience above your own. And so what I've discovered is that comparison creates a bad environment for growth, for learning, and for relationships. Let me just tell you a couple of things that negative comparison does in your life. The first thing that comparison does is that it kills activity. Comparison kills activity. What does that mean? The moment you notice that somebody is better at a job, somebody is better at a skill, somebody is better at a performance than you are, it causes you to give up and not try anymore. You get paralyzed, right? You become inactive, you feel inadequate, and the fear of failure steps in. And so you end up not doing the thing that you were supposed to do. Think about doing YouTube right now. I've been wanting to do YouTube videos and a podcast for a long time. But when I did my research a few years ago and discovered how many channels existed that do what I wanted to do and how many followers these people had, it paralyzed me for so long that I decided, maybe it's not for me. Let somebody else do it. But you know what I realized along the way? That other people kept creating channels and they started from zero and now they've reached 1,000, 10,000 followers. By the way, while we're on the subject of YouTube, please go ahead. If this content is adding any kind of value for you, go ahead and like the video. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please go ahead so you can get updates on other episodes and other content and other activities that we do here at Activated. Let's get back into it. So comparison kills activity. If you choose to elevate somebody else's assignment, somebody else's roles, and somebody else's gifts, but not your own, it leaves you feeling inadequate and you end up not doing anything. Comparison kills connectivity. See, not only does comparison stop you from doing what needs to be done, it also hinders you from developing relationships. How does this work? Think about a corporate environment where you have colleagues where the effort you all put in, doesn't matter the department, whether it's marketing or sales or human resources, wherever it is, supply, development, whatever it is that you're doing. If you focus on comparing yourself to other people, healthy competition gets replaced by unhealthy competition, where you will do anything to outbid them, to outdo them, to the point that you will even sabotage their efforts. And so what happens is you either become inferior or superior compared to them. This disturbs relationships. You will start to look at other people as enemies and not friends. You will start to see them as people that you need to beat rather than people that you need to assist. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is a great way to kill success in your life. Comparison also kills productivity. What does that mean? See, being active is doing something. Being productive is doing the right things. When you're productive, you're not just busy. You're producing results. You are growing the thing. You are able to produce results that can be measured over time, and you can see it on a curve that things are working out good. But when you entertain comparison, what that does is that you start to become busy doing whatever you can, but not doing what needs to be done. You become so focused and obsessed with trying to outdo the other person that you start to overlap into areas that are not your own. You start to do someone else's job. You start to get involved in someone else's experiences and business. You neglect your own. And so comparison can destroy productivity. I hope you get that one. Here's another one. Comparison kills originality. There's a saying that I came up with about 2 or 3 years ago that says, we learn by imitation, but we grow by innovation. What that means is simply this, that when you are learning a skill, when you are learning a new subject, when you are learning a new field, you watch and listen to somebody who has been in it. Someone who's able to teach the subject. You go from the basics, from the elementary to the basics, and then you start to elevate to the advanced level. But you begin by doing things the way somebody else does it. That's where you get the concept of internship. You watch what someone else is doing, you duplicate the action. But over time, imitation becomes innovation, meaning you start to find ways to do something that identifies with your skill level, with your understanding, with your environment, with your resources, and with your cognitive processes that God has blessed you with. And so you move from copying somebody else to doing it your own way. But here's the problem. Some people get stuck doing things the way somebody else is doing them. Can you imagine somebody who's an artist? You kill your creativity when you start to want to be like somebody famous. You try to be like Van Gogh. You try to be like Leonardo da Vinci, or you try to be like Bach, or any of these other artists, whether it be music or script writing, book writing, whatever it is, or sermon writing for some of us. You start to imitate somebody else because you're comparing yourself, and in your mind, if I do it the way they're doing it, I'll be successful. That's a problem, because originality goes out the window the moment you try to do things the way somebody else is doing them. And finally, comparison kills positivity. As procrastination is the thief of time, comparison is the thief of joy. If you want to be miserable, live your life comparing it to other people. Spend your time doom scrolling on social media and watching videos about other people's lifestyles, right? A day in the life of this person. It makes you look at your life and think, what am I doing with myself? Rather than motivating you to pick yourself up and get stuff done, it paralyzes you. It causes you to imitate. It causes you to function in a place of inadequacy because you're looking at what they're doing and deciding they're better than me. There's a very famous Bible story that illustrates this point for those of you who are Christians and appreciate the word of the Lord. It's in Numbers chapter 13. The Bible says that when the children of Israel left Egypt and they were in the wilderness for a couple of days, God leads them to the borders of Canaan and 12 spies are chosen from every tribe. And when those spies go into the land for 40 days and 40 nights, they come back with a report. I want to read the words of that report for you and show you the dangers of comparison. This is Numbers chapter 13, and the Bible says, "We are not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we are." And so they brought a report to the people of Israel, a bad report. And this is what they said: "The land, though through which we have gone to spy it out, is a land that devours its inhabitants." That's a lie. "And all the people that we saw in it are a great height. And there we saw giants, the sons of Anak, and we seemed to ourselves like grasshoppers, and so we seemed to them." Now, let me distill this for you if you're not familiar with the story. In Canaan, they found grapes the size of people's heads. They saw walled cities and land that spread across the horizon that as far as the eye could see. But because of the giants that they saw, they were so afraid that 10 of them said, "We were like grasshoppers in their eyes." In other words, they judged themselves based on how they looked at themselves to the other people. They even said that the land devours the inhabitants. In other words, the land is not big enough. It was. Because comparison takes your joy. It makes you exaggerate negatively. It makes you lie in order to get out of responsibility. And like these people, you might miss out on your Canaan. And so a mindset shift is necessary to move from comparison to connecting. What does connecting do? Connecting makes you not look at people as competition. It forces you to connect with the right people. People who are better than you. People who've done things longer than you have. Rather than you seeing them as competition, you can learn from them. You start to connect and create relationships that are symbiotic. Rather than putting them on a pedestal, you sit at a table and you share ideas so that both of you or all of you can grow together. Meetings don't become opportunities to bring each other down, but in order to complement each other and to help each other grow. And so that's what connecting does. It cancels out comparison. Here's an interesting quote from an author whose ideas, I don't agree with everything he says, but on this point, him and I were on the same page. Dr. John DeMartini has an inspired thought that says, "Compare your daily actions to your highest values. If what you do doesn't measure up to your internal values, work on that and do not worry about other people." In other words, the person you need to compare yourself with is who you were yesterday. And who you are tomorrow must look at who you are today and say, "How have I grown?" And as you compare yourself with who you were yesterday, evaluate that based on the values that you have within yourself. Because your value system will determine the work you do, the people you connect with, and how productive that you are. So if you must compare yourself to yourself. There's also something interesting I learned from John C. Maxwell's book, Sometimes You Win and Sometimes You Learn. In his book, he talks about the danger of comparison in the life of Nobel Peace Prize winners. There are men and women who've won the Nobel Prize throughout history. But what has been discovered is that the majority of them, the moment they win that Nobel Prize, whether it's in the field of science, humanities, whatever breakthroughs that they might have done, the moment they get that Nobel Prize, a lot of the time they don't do anything after that. Because the Nobel Prize is the pick for them. It's the thing that they were aiming for or they wanted to get. And after the Nobel Prize for writing, the author never produces anything great. After the Nobel Prize in some biological discovery, they don't do anything after, because that prize has become the roof for them, the ceiling for them. Be careful not to treat life experiences like a Nobel Peace Prize, where once you get it, there's nothing else to do. Growth is possible while you continue to grow, and you do it through connecting. The more you connect, the more you realize that there's always another level of growth that you can have. Let's move on from that one. Quit complaining. Start complimenting. Quit complaining. Start complimenting. Okay, let's distill that for a moment. Complimenting works in both ways. And my friend Henry helped me understand this clearer, because in my mind, compliments were always things you said verbally. I never went further and researched and saw what that looked like. And so last year, while we were doing a series of talks, we discovered that complimenting has two spellings. There's complimenting with an E, and then there's complimenting with an I. When you say a compliment with an I, it's the polite expressions of praise and admiration. You tell somebody, you look beautiful today. You look handsome today. Your speech was great. Man, your car looks amazing. Wow, your home is beautiful. That's a compliment with an I. It is words of affirmation that what you're looking at, what you're hearing, what you're experiencing is so good to you that you need to say something. But compliment with an E is something completely different. This is when their action meets your action. This is when their words meet your words, okay? You complete or enhance something to make it better. Think of a project two people are working on. The one person creates the framework. They create the skeleton. The other person adds the detail. Another person comes and paints it. Another person comes and creates the right packaging. That's complementing, where your work and my work go together. And when I say quit complaining, start complimenting, I mean both. Whether the things you say, or how the work is done, or how the relationship progresses. Let me give you an example. Consider Stephen and Susan, a couple that has been married for 5 years. They've been having frequent arguments recently over trivial matters. Stephen complains about Susan's habits of leaving the dishes in the sink, while Susan complains that Stephen's tendency to leave his shoes in the living room. Do you see how bad this relationship can be because of complaining? Now imagine if they start to compliment each other. If Stephen walks into the kitchen and the dishes are not done, rather than complaining to Susan, he goes ahead and just does the dishes. And if Susan sees Stephen's socks and shoes in the wrong place, she can just pick it up and do it for him. And so when a couple shifts from complaining to complimenting, the relationship gets better. Over time, the simple shift in their communication can help reduce conflict in the relationship and increase connectivity. All right? Now, does this mean you should be okay with everything that somebody does, that you should never point out that this is not working, that their actions and their words are causing more harm than good? Should you just ignore that? No. Listen, there's a difference between complaining and correcting. Because when you correct, you are helping somebody become better as an individual. Thus, they can compliment you a whole lot better. And so here's the thing. When you complain, you limit your perspective. When you complain, you miss out on opportunities. You're so busy pointing out what's not working out that you never get a chance to see what can work out. When you complain, you never focus on the solution. Generally speaking, complainers are never solution-oriented people. Their energy, their focus, their intelligence, and their IQ is more focused on pointing out what is not working rather than focusing on the solution. And finally, complainers have very few people in their lives. It is unattractive to be a complainer, to constantly bicker about what you don't agree with, to always be looking for small details that are not in your favor. Less people will want to know you, and more people would want to be away from you. Let's talk about the third one. We've talked about the fact that it is better for you to not complain, but to compliment, right? You become the kind of person that looks for solutions and doesn't always look for bad. It is important that you quit complaining and start connecting, because it is better to be in relationships than not to be. The third one is simply this: quit compromising, start conquering. Quit compromising and start conquering. A lot of the time when people are ready to quit, it's because they've allowed compromise into their lives, and that hurts them more than it helps them. Now, before we even talk about negative compromise, let me just talk to you about positive compromise. When you compromise in the right way, when it comes from a place of building, when it comes from a place of growth and trying to resolve issues and improve the quality of relationships, compromise helps you resolve conflict, You start to look at things from a let's find a solution rather than pointing out what is working bad. Okay? When you compromise positively, you resolve conflict. When you compromise positively, you achieve mutual benefit. In other words, you want to know, how can this person benefit while I benefit as well? And so your contribution meets their contribution, and that creates a win-win situation. So you are achieving mutual benefit rather than trying to find personal benefit. Positive compromise preserves relationships. All right. It preserves relationships because the individual, the people that you are close to, they look forward to new challenges with you. They look forward to going to the next level with you because they realize that your role in the relationship is good, that you bring out the best in them rather than reducing them to something that is less. And so it preserves relationships rather than destroys them. It also promotes cooperation. When you learn to compromise, a leader that learns to compromise with their followers, okay? A partner who learns to compromise with their partner, it promotes cooperation. So rather than not producing results and not moving forward, you start to learn to understand that you're working together. And so in promoting cooperation, you start to be a team. You start to produce more results than you've ever have before. And finally, you find practical solutions. Because when your energy is focused on building rather than destroying, you find solutions. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a beautiful thing. But negative compromise, never good. Compromise can be harmful when you sacrifice your values, your principles, your goals, and temporarily you inconvenience yourself, and you also want to avoid conflict. So negative compromise works against you, not for you. In the short run, it looks like it's working out for you, but in the long run, you start to discover there's less trust, there's less cooperation, there's less mutual benefit, and eventually you start to feel alone. See, positive compromise creates harmony in relationships. Negative compromise creates bad situations, and things never work out in your favor. Just real quick, when you compromise, you lower your standards, you weaken your conscience, you hurt your personal testimony, and for those who are prayerful, you hurt your prayer life, because it is difficult to pray when you've entertained compromise in your life. You see, life has thrown a bunch of obstacles and challenges your way. It tests your resilience and strength like crazy. And if you don't know how to compromise in the right way, you will find yourself struggling. So what should you do? Rather than compromising, quit that, start conquering. What does that mean? Compromise is an easy way to get out of trouble. It's an easy way to get out of situations. But when you start to be a conqueror, you approach everything in life as an opportunity to learn, an opportunity to grow as an individual. What has been discovered, it was a very interesting thought. I'm reading this book called Disrupt Yourself. Disrupt Yourself. And in the book, it was talking about the fact that there's a benefit in dealing with adversity. And what happens is the more adversity you experience as a person, the more creative you become in finding solutions. But if things just work out for you and things are fine, you will always struggle. There's a company that has an interesting way of developing ideas amongst its workers. They'll give them a deadline, and they'll reduce the amount of resources that they have to find a solution. And so what happens is when they are in an environment of scarcity, they will have to sit down and really use their minds to come up with something innovative. And what that has done is that the employees, when removed from Advantage and the beautifully air-conditioned offices they have and all the resources and all the technology, when it's just pen and paper, they come up with such great ideas that when they go back to the advantages, they scale a whole lot more. Now, I'm not saying give up on every advantage in life and compromise that way, but I'm saying, listen, there's benefit to the struggle, okay? Because it makes you tough. It makes you a conqueror. Something else I found out when it comes to building muscle. One of the things that astronauts suffer whenever they go up into space and they're in zero gravity, they start to struggle. Their bone density gets affected and their muscles suffer from atrophy. In other words, the weightlessness and lack of resistance from the environment around them, it causes their bodies to weaken. But for us walking on earth on gravity, and for those who exercise and take care of their bodies, the struggle actually helps you more than it hurts you. And so it's interesting that adversity is good for you. So you need to have a conqueror's mindset. Here's another one. Quit the comfort zone. Start on the conquer zone. Just like the first one. Avoiding compromise means don't always find safety in the comfort zone. Sometimes you got to start off in the conquer zone. The comfort zone hurts us more than it helps us. Not so long ago, I read something interesting about codfish. Okay? In North America, codfish are a big commercial business. There is a market for Eastern cod all over the United States of America. And so what they do is they ship codfish from Asia to America because codfish is so popular. And so what was discovered is that because of the demand for codfish, there was a problem. When they froze the cod, then shipped them, but what happened is that the freezing of the fish took the flavor out of it. But when they tried to ship them fresh, they also discovered that there was a challenge when they put them in sea water. It became worse. So what they discovered is if they take the codfish and then put catfish in the tanks, codfish and catfish are known enemies. They're common enemies. And so throughout the journey from Asia to the United States, as the codfish are trying to avoid conflict with the catfish, them being in movement in the tanks or in the shipping containers actually keeps them fresh. So again, adversity helps you instead of hurting you. So you need to get out of your comfort zone. Stop relying on the comfort zone. Quit the comfort zone and get into the conquer zone. Sometimes the enemy will attack you with comfort and God will save you with discomfort. Think about that. The conquer zone, it refers to the place where growth happens. It refers to the place where you challenge yourself. You challenge the people around you. You put yourself in situations where you have to do more than you normally do. And so I'm saying, quit the comfort zone and get into the conquer zone. And finally, quit coasting. Quit coasting and start casting. Quit coasting and start casting. Let me explain. When you coast, it's like being in a boat that has no sails, it has no motor, and it's just dragged by the wind. It doesn't choose its own direction. You have no oars to direct you. You're just coasting. And when you get to a rapid place of the river, it just takes you wherever and you can hit into the rocks. Coasting means going with the flow, because it requires a little bit of effort. It means drifting in other people's direction. It means taking other people's choices and making them your own. Coasting is never taking responsibility for what happens to you. You don't live a planned life. Everything just happens to you. You wait for things to solve themselves. Coasting is watching what other people are doing and delaying doing it yourself. Somebody who lives a life of coasting never gets anything done. But if you move from coasting to casting, that's different. Jesus shared a parable where he said, count the cost. When somebody wants to build a tower, they look at how much is it going to cost to pay the workers? How much is it going to cost to lay a foundation? How much is it going to cost for the bricks? What kind of bricks do I need? What kind of weather is in the area? You count the cost. This is what you do when the year is over and you're looking at a new year coming. You count the cost. Where do I want to study? Where do I want to live? Does my current job meet my financial needs? Do I need a promotion? Do I need to grow the business? Do I need new employees? You start to count the cost. In other words, you have a vision. You live a life of purpose. You live a planned life. Somebody who costs is the one who never waits for things to happen. There's an expression that says, time heals all things. It is very misleading because what happens is you are always waiting for time to pass rather than doing the work that needs to be done yourself. Costing is taking calculated steps to being in the right lane and counting the cost every step of the way. So listen, I think you understand what I'm doing here. In life, it's important to hold on, but sometimes you might need to quit. The question is, what do you quit? And if you've listened to everything that I've said in this episode, by the way, please like, please share, please comment, and please follow us on social media. We want to grow our YouTube channel, our Instagram channel, and our podcast channels on Spotify. Help us get this message out, because we're not going to quit, because there's something that God wants us to say, and there's something that you need to hear. And so as you're deciding, what is it that I need to quit in my life? It's time to evaluate where you are now. I pray that you'll have a good year, and I pray that you will enjoy the content that we produce, because we want you to live activated lives through all the transitions that it brings for you. God bless you.